Hello, everyone. It's Deltlead, and welcome back. I am so excited today to be able to be talking with one of the developers of Simple Rockets 2. I have, you all know him, you all love him, Pedro with me on the call. Pedro, how are you doing today?
Fine, fine. A bit worried about my busy life, but I mean, I found
Absolutely.
some time for this interview.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad I could have you here. So, Pedro, could you tell me a little bit about the history of Jundroo? Who was the original founder, and what were some of the first things that Jundroo produced?
I'm so new in the company. I have to ask Andrew about this, but he
Mm-hmm.
sent me a list of the things because we are becoming 10 years old next week on Tuesday.
Awesome.
So he was already putting together a list of things, and it's crazy because like some things I didn't know. Uh, the company was started on 2012 after Andrew made a couple games, and it's like every year they managed to put a game out. On 2009, Andrew started with Skyward, and then in 2010 he made Bridge Basher. Then on 11, Simple Physics, and the game did so well they decided to start the company. So in 2012, he made the logic thing and quit his job at Boeing to start working on games full time. And by 2013, he had already made Simple Rockets,
Wow.
which is crazy for just one person in such a short time. And the game became, like, if my notes are right, it was the second app in the iOS App Store. Like, not just game, the second app, which is really crazy
Yeah,
for such a small project.
back in 2013. Yeah, I mean, I remember playing the original Simple Rockets in high school in like 2014, 2015. So it's a long time ago now. And so
Yeah.
Jundroo was at that point just Andrew developing games. There wasn't anyone else on the team at that point.
Yeah, it was just Andrew. And then by the next year, by 2014, Philip also left Boeing and they started working on Simple Planes. And in that same year, they released Simple Planes on iOS.
Right. I remember watching Simple Planes really take off, and that was probably the first game that like really took off on PC and mobile for Jundroo. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they reached top one game in the iOS store, which is again really crazy. After like 1 year after another, they were on the top games of iOS.
Awesome.
It's really crazy. Then they released Simple Plays on 2015, I think it was on Steam,
Mm-hmm.
and that did really, really well too. So Nathan also quit his job at Boeing and joined Jundroo.
So it seems like a bunch of Boeing engineers were working. Andrew quit, started doing games full time, and the more successful he got, the more Boeing engineers went to work for him.
Yeah, to make more enjoyable planes.
Wow. Well, that's really awesome. And then they started working on Simple Rockets 2. What year was the did they start developing Simple Rockets 2?
I think they started on 2015 when
2015.
Nathan joined Jundroo, but the game was announced on 2016.
Right.
So like they've been working, and it's crazy to think about it because like some people don't notice the amount of work that goes behind Simple Rockets 2 because it's like already 6 years, 6 7 years working on that game, which is really really insane.
Yeah, and for such a small development team too. I mean, a lot of people I think are so used to like AAA development teams now, where they can put
Hmm.
out a year in a game in 1 or 2 years of time. But for a smaller team, it takes a long time to build a game as fully fleshed out as Simple Rockets 2.
Yeah, 7 people, and not all of us are full time.
Right.
Because, for example, I'm not full time; I'm studying at the same time. And like, if you think about it, the amount of people that work on like Minecraft or KSP,
Right.
the
Sure.
teams are much larger, and that allows for a lot more a lot more work to be done in the same time span. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you're still working in university and you're working part time with Jundroo. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like working for Jundroo as a developer?
I mean, it's really really nice. The freedom I have at the end is like perfect because I have a really really busy schedule because I'm on the university. I'm on a CubeSat team. I'm also in the university politics, in the government of the university,
Mm-hmm.
and I have many side projects. And at the same time, I'm working at Jundroo, and like I can adapt the schedule for working at Jundroo to my life, which is something not many companies offer. And like they are so understanding. If something happens, I just have to tell them, and they always understand. It's a really nice environment to be working on.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like it's a really great team. So, how
Hmm.
did you get to become a member of the Jundroo team? What was the connection that started it off? Did you apply to work for them? Did someone reach out to you? What's that story?
I mean, I was in my finishing my university studies, my
Mm-hmm.
bachelor degree,
Right.
and in my university you have to do like a bunch of practices in a company. You have to work at a company to get the full credits of the bachelor degree.
Right.
So
Right.
I had a lot of experience on Simple Rockets too because like it was and it is still is my favorite game. And we were managing the Simple Rockets chat Discord server.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with Jastro on the ESS system, and like with all that experience I had, and with more than 200 bug reports I had, I sent an email to Andrew asking if I could do the company practices in Jundroo, and he replied that he would love me to work at Jundroo for a couple months. So we signed the contract, and I worked there at Jundroo for 2 months, and then with Planet Studio being made and all my technical experience making planets, because like on ESS, Jaster was focusing on the lore and the design and the concept, and I was focusing more on the technical part of making the custom planets because Planet Studio was still not a thing, so it had to be done editing the XML documents of the game, and it wasn't documented, so we had to reverse engineer the system.
Right.
With all my experience on the technical side, I was like the perfect fit to work on Planet Studio. And as they were developing the platform, I was giving them feedback about how it should be, what tools I will need to work. And at the same time, I was making the templates and the new system in the game.
Gotcha.
So after that, I just kept working at Jundroo.
So since then, what has been kind of your role in the Jundroo team? Do you still like focus on Planet Studio, or have you expanded to doing other projects in the company?
No, no, no. Like what I started doing was debugging, and I still do debugging nowadays. It's one of the things that take the most time
Yep.
because like you have to go through all the bug reports and check what is causing them. And I try to reply to all the bug reports and explain people what is going on, how to deal with the problem, or if it's their fault and not an actual bug, how they
Right.
can prevent that problem from happening. And apart from bug reports, I work on design. I've made the planet system. I also work on actual merch design. I've made all the merch that we released a couple months ago. I work on programming. I've been working especially on the last couple of updates of Simple Rockets 2. I've been programming a lot, and that's mostly it. And I work on concept, like especially now that we are working on career mode. I'm doing most of the concept part of how it is going to play, how the gameplay is going to be,
Right.
and
Right.
that's why we did this last update, because after working on the concept, I found a lot of holes that will need to be filled before we release career mode, and we've been trying to fill those holes. and we are going to do another small update, hopefully in the next month, or I mean, if everything goes insanely well this month, to polish a couple more things that should make the career mode a lot more exciting.
Awesome. So, do you anticipate career mode or just the full release of the game? Because I know we're coming up on that 1.0. Do you expect that
Hmm.
coming out this year in 2022?
I mean, for Jundroo, with the schedule I was saying at the beginning of the interview,
Mm-hmm.
it is like one release every year, like either a release or a big announcement.
Right.
Because like after Simple Planes came out on 2014, then next year was Simple Planes on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
Next year the announcement of Simple Rockets 2. Next year it was Aero Effect. Next year it was the release of Simple Rockets 2 on Steam. The next year on iOS, Android, and then 2020 came, and that's the only year we haven't released anything
Yep.
because
And
like
yeah, that
there
goes
was a
that goes with no real need for explanation why 2020 was not a year that a whole lot got done.
yeah, of course. I mean, it was hard for everyone. Like
Yeah.
scheduling when so many things are happening is super hard, and
Absolutely.
finding motivation and like especially for the younger part of Jundroo, Nikki and I were really busy with our studies, so that already was taking a lot of time, and then all the COVID mess. But then on 2021, we picked up on the speed working on Simple Planes VR,
Right.
and now we are catching up with career mode on 2022.
Well, that's awesome to hear that you guys are back on track. So, can you tell me a little bit more about kind of the inspiration why Andrew started Simple Rockets and then Andrew and Nathan started Simple Rockets 2? What was the kind of the kicking off of those projects? What made them want to do it?
I mean, I asked Andrew about this today, and he literally said that they were working on those mobile games and they loved working playing KSP. So they were super inspired by KSP, and they just tried to make something that was enjoyable for mobile phone that
Yeah.
was about rockets. So that's where Simple Rockets came from. And like I think it's been a really long time, but I think in the beginning, in the first couple years of Simple Rockets,
Mm-hmm.
there was an actual link to the download page of KSP on Steam, I think, which is really crazy. And
Right.
then they were working on Simple Planes, which is 3D, has all that craft building. So it was like, I mean, it was logical that if you put together Simple Rockets and Simple Planes,
You
Simple
get Simple
Rockets 2
Rockets
comes
too.
out.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a pretty natural transition between those three games. So speaking of
Hmm.
KSP, and you said that Simple Rockets was kind of inspired by bringing KSP to mobile devices or a rocket simulator to mobile devices. Would you say that Simple Rockets 2 is a competitor with KSP, or would you say that Simple Rockets 2 is kind of in its own genre?
I mean, Simple Rockets is not at all a competitor with KSP. Like, there's no doubt. The way people play KSP is so different from how people play Simple Rockets 2. Because I think Simple Rockets 2 has more of a vibe closer to Simple Planes, which is more focused on building and trying out the engineering part rather than the exploring part, which is where KSP is more focused on. On
Certainly.
Simple Rockets 2, you spend a lot of time making very detailed crafts, and you have a lot of procedural parts, while in KSP you have more predefined parts that you can just easily put on and really quickly get something that looks fun and you can explore with it.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
are going to head more into that kind of gameplay, hopefully with career mode, making it a bit more simple
Right.
and making it more friendly with exploring. But I mean, it's something we still haven't released, and I can't get much into detail.
Yeah, well, I will avoid asking you about the details. We don't want to spoil it for us, but we are very excited to see that come out. So, what are your thoughts? Speaking about kind of the differences between the KSP community being very exploration focused and like landing and kind of pushing the envelope there, and Simple Rockets 2 being more like people building, super detailed replicas of historical rockets, or spending a ton of time to build this like 1-to-1 scale accurate F-15, or all the things that show up on the first page there. What are your thoughts on the Simple Rockets 2 community? Is it what you expected it to become? Is it different from what you expected?
I mean, it's different from what I was hoping it to come because I came from KSP. I had like 2,000 hours of gameplay on KSP,
Yeah.
and like I was used to that community. But Simple Rockets 2 is really different because like with the web page, the the way the community is headed automatically is like I'm going to build things that look as good as possible to compare it with what others build.
Right.
And as some players get better, everyone in the community tries to get better too. So that forces people to be more like building focused rather than exploration focused. But on KSP, since it's harder to share crafts with friends and with random people, you focus more on exploring because you are by yourself playing.
It's very
So
true.
I think that's one of the main things that are driving the communities apart, the web page and the community platform we have.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely, that's something I haven't really thought about, but absolutely, like the ability to share your work is going to make people want to focus on that aspect of the gameplay and not
Mhm.
focus on playing the game as a exploration game, but focus on playing it as a building game. Well,
Right.
that's
And I mean, to be honest, KSP has more things inviting people to explore. Like there are some components of Simple Rockets 2 that are more sandbox focused because like, it's by heart a more sandbox game.
right.
On KSP you have communications, you have science, which in Simple Rockets 2 you don't have at least yet.
At least yet. Well, I'll keep that in mind.
I
Very.
mean, if I'm going to be fully honest here. I'm not saying that we are currently working on it, but if the game does well on the release of 1.0,
Mhm.
we are going to keep working on it, and I hope it as well.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly hope so too. It would be very interesting to see some of those more exploration focused features make their way into the game
Mhm.
and kind of broaden that community and the play style. So, speaking of, again, coming back to the development of the game, in this last update, or not the last one, but one of the more recent ones, the Overload mod, which is a very popular mod for those of you listening, it allows you to edit XML properties of a part or a craft in game without having to close the game, open up an XML text file, edit it directly, and then go back to the game. The Overload mod has now officially been added into the game as a feature. Um, are there any other mods that Jundroo is planning on integrating into Simple Rockets 2, or is that kind of a one-off thing?
Actually, we have added more things from mods. Like there was another mod by S Flanker called Ansible, which
Mm-hmm.
allowed to broadcast bits in events to other crafts, which is now in by stock in
That's
the
true.
game.
That's true. Yeah.
And
Um,
like some things that were on the engines mod are now the stock engines are closer.
right.
So
The
but
monopropellant
the thing is that
engine.
yeah, for example,
Right.
and like the electricity consumption of the electric motor. But the thing
Right.
is that it's not because we are pursuing having mods implemented into the game, but we because as we were developing this update, we felt the need of having those features in the game.
Right. So it
So
wasn't.
we decided to add them.
So right. So it wasn't you guys trying to like absorb the different mods the community had made, but the community and the developers both agreeing that that feature would be good in the game.
Yeah, correct. Because like the thing that made us consider having overload in the game was that we were adding things like being able to change the color of the exhausts of the engines through XML. And we saw that some Android phones are making it harder to access the XML files.
Right.
And on iOS, it was a bit complicated already. So, I mean, if we are adding features for the XML edits and we want everyone to enjoy them, we needed to have overload.
To make it easier for everyone else to be able to enjoy those features. Yeah, totally understand that.
Yeah.
So, speaking of like all the different features and challenges with developing for both mobile and PC platforms, if you could snap your fingers right now and change any aspect of the game or add a feature or take away a feature, is there anything in Super Rockets 2 that you would change if you could do it just right now?
I mean, the answer is obvious. Career mode. If I could just snap my fingers and have it done,
Okay,
like that would be so ideal.
aside from just finishing all the work you guys are currently doing, are there any other like maybe small personal things that you kind of wish were in the game or different about the game?
I mean, as I said, I personally coming from KSP
Mm-hmm.
and being I don't know how to translate this because like I'm studying telecoms, which is a career that only exists in Spain, I think, which is like uh, antennas, signals, servers,
Sure,
and all
right.
that thing,
Network
like
communications.
information theory, communications.
Yep.
And I mean, I would love to have communications in the game and science experiments, but as I said, it as of right now, it's not something we are working on, and I don't think it's going to be on 1.0. But in the future, I would love to work on those things. And like, if I could snap my fingers and have them done right now, I would love so.
That would be the thing. Yeah, I just recently got into ham radio, amateur radio, and like learning about radio propagation and how much it's used in everything. It, it, it really is surprising how little people think about it, but communications is most of what spacecraft do. Like any satellite that
Mhm.
you could think of, most like its primary job is it's a communications device. And then whatever other jobs it might fulfill, but almost everything in space is a communications device. So it would be really cool if like
Hmm.
just to have that in the next update. Obviously, probably not, but that would be a really awesome thing to add.
Yeah, and as of right now, uh, my CubeSat team, like I'm on a CubeSat team called Ubigo Space Lab, and we are working on a satellite that is called Bisho, and we are going to have both UHF and S-band antennas. So we
Okay,
are making an S-band ground station.
awesome. So that
I
that'll
can
be
send you an image of the antenna
I would
if you want.
I would love to see it. Yeah. So that'll actually be a amateur like radio satellite in orbit.
We are considering both being on amateur and on. I mean, I don't know how NDA this is, but we are considering commercial because there are some problems in amateur. Uh, but I can't go into much detail about that.
I understand non-disclosure agreements. Well, that's very interesting, very cool to hear. Um, kind of closing out this interview, what just in general in your time with Jundroo now as kind of just a college intern for a while and now being brought more into the team, what has been your favorite part about working with the Jundroo team?
I mean, the freedom is the best part of it, and like it sounds super cliche to say this. That
Right.
it's like every meeting we have, it's like meeting with my friends. Every week we have a meeting, and like I'm waiting for that meeting to happen because I enjoy them a lot,
Awesome.
and I get to see the games evolving, games that I love, and like being with people that are so nice, doing things that are so cool. It's like a dream, absolutely. And like being able to play Simple Rockets 2 as my job and add things to the game I've been wanting to have for 3 years now in the game. Being able to add them myself, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's got to feel special. Well, Pedro,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time, and Yeah, thank you so much for talking about all this stuff. It's super interesting to get a developer's insights on these kind of topics and just learn more about the history of Jundroo. And I'm very excited to be celebrating Jundroo's 10th anniversary this coming week. That's so awesome to hear. So we'll definitely be looking forward to that as well.
Thank you. I love your channel. If someone wants to talk, I'm usually in the chat in your streaming. So
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate that support as well. Well, thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you, everyone, for watching the video. I'm so glad that you were able to tune in and listen to us chat. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and a subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day and keep on building.